Good evening, Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to another episode of Bourbon with O. For this episode, we have Big Rob. Everyone calls him Big Rob because he's as small as he is. But yeah, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be chatting with Rob just about his story, his life, his journey. And we're going to ask a couple of questions, go back and forth, and, just have some fun with it. As you guys can tell, we also have another new face here. We're going to let him introduce himself, talk a little bit as well. We figured, it'd be fun to add a few people to this. So without taking any more time, tell us, who are you?
My name's Tim DeChamps. I actually moved down here from Burlington, Vermont about 2 weeks ago. So I got my feet wet. I just started here at the company. Today is my first day, so yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You were told to get off someone's concrete today?
Yeah, it's pretty scary. No, not scary. Just we kind of had to just, kind of step off and walk away. Didn't want to get in a fight on my first day, so avoid that at all costs.
Your second day.
Yeah. Don't want to get fired just yet, so,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Welcome. Well, thanks for having me on today.
Welcome. Thank you.
O asked me about, 6-7 weeks ago, said what kind of intrigued me to come in on the show. First of all, because I was a good buddy of mine, Robbie as well, these guys, Grant, and of course I know Dante as well. I did just get to know this gentleman here today. But he said something that was interesting. He said, with your background, from a statistical point of view, you shouldn't be here. And I found that to be an interesting, way to look at it. And so I kind of inquired a little like what he was looking for and that kind of thing. I said, I believed myself to have been through a lot of things early on that would have precluded me from becoming, in the eyes of the world, maybe successful. So being able to attain a place where I feel like I'm doing what I was meant to do and also making some money in the process as well. So I think that's an important part of being successful. But starting in the journey, what O and I first discussed was that, I shouldn't be here. So I shouldn't be here in a way because where I started off, grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, family of an older brother, a younger sister, and a stepfather. Grew up in a home where we were superintendents in a building, so we had 47 families we would serve, and so I worked really hard early on to develop, let's say, disciplines about, handling responsibility, balancing school, and then of course I was involved early on with sports. That didn't last long, but during the period when I got to high school, I kind of ended that pretty quickly. But early on, came from a family of domestic violence, saw a lot of stuff go down. And so it created a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. My mom, suicidal at one point, various people in the family suicidal, alcoholism, drug addiction, eating disorders, all kinds of psychological disorders that would have precluded me from at least having a, quote, more normal childhood. So grew up kind of alienated from my brother, alienated from my sister. My little brother came along later with my stepdad when I was like 15, so I really didn't grow up with him at all. But basically, we grew up in a home where, I was at least encouraged to work in school for grade school. When I got to high school early on, I did well. And somewhere in the first weeks of high school, I met a girl, and she got pregnant, and I was starting football. I was starting as a starting quarterback, and that ended very quickly in a matter of about 6 or 8 weeks. I found myself quitting school, being uneducated, leaving as a freshman in high school, and living pretty much impoverished. Lived with my parents for a short 6 months, 3 months, and then went on my own at the age of 16. So starting out that way, just for the premise, is like, that is not an ideal setting to grow and prosper and, let's say, be an entrepreneurial spirit and become a successful person. As I believe God had involved for me, and fate had it, that those early experiences of mental illness, bipolar disorders, bulimia, anorexia, suicide, depression, anxiety, panic disorders, alcohol and drug issues, that those would be the building blocks for what I would do later as a career. Starting out the way I did, I started off with no high school diploma. and a child. Impoverished.
At 16.
At 16.
Okay.
And then at 17, because I learned my lesson really well, I had a second one.
Nice.
And I lost one between them.
Oof.
So by the age of 17, I had 2 children. I worked for Kentucky Fried Chicken as a clerk or as a cook, and would really have a difficult time trying to make ends meet. And so I found myself in those days between trying to find help with social services, which I really wasn't eligible for at the time, because I made too much money, but not enough money to provide for the children. So I found myself doing odd jobs, sweeping the street, doing garbage in various places, shoveling snow. It kind of went along with the superintendent's work I did as a young kid, so I kind of had that thought about how I'd make things work. And in those days, it was hard to, afford clothes. It was hard for the kids to buy their milk, that kind of stuff. So it was a real difficult situation. Now, to add injury to insults, coming from a domestic violence background, I met a kid's mother who, let's say, was a very abusive person herself. So I wound up starting that whole multi-generational transmission stuff. So we were repeating where I came from. So I become the victim in this situation, and trying to raise the kids alone. It was a whole nightmare. So probably by the age of 18 is when I started to go back and figure I need to get 17, I had to get a GED, which I did get. Went on to do some makeshift college stuff early on in the church. And all of that started me in an idea of what I would be doing, but it would take me literally around 25 years from that point to get to the place of education I'm in right now, and the place where I would move into a business situation. So this is kind of like just a little bit of the background. So I thought maybe if anybody has questions before we go further, this kind of help me.
So yeah, I mean, like, and just to clarify, right,
Mm-hmm.
with my statement,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
That statement is, like if you look at it, right, statistically, it takes 8 generations to get out of poverty, right? If you look at the, just life expectancy here in the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking damn near 700 years, right? Like that's 8 generations right about. And if we talk about from where you came from, that's what, 18 years that it took you?
Oh, yeah.
So as you guys know, a while ago when I decided to put this idea together, I am a strong believer in every success story needs to be told. Most people's perception of entrepreneurship and stuff like that is it's hard, it doesn't work, all that stuff. And and I've said this a bunch of times. It's because the failures are louder than the success stories. Yeah. There are a ton of success stories. We hear it all the time with with Grant and with you, and we go to all these conferences and we hear it all the time. And these are real humans living this way and came from there.
Right. So
for me, my big thing is, and I have you on here because I don't want to mask what it looks like.
No.
You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I want people to understand that even though it's crazy, it's hard, it's tough, it's unlikely it's possible.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So if if no one has any questions about your background, if you can you get into what sparked this 18-year complete change of things? Yeah. If no one has any questions.
Actually,
of course.
If I can interject, I do
Please.
have one question. I want a little bit of a spoiler alert. So you haven't actually mentioned this, but you are a psychotherapist.
Yes.
That is the technical term.
Correct.
Okay. I've been wanting to ask this question to a psychotherapist for a while. And again, spoiler alert, at 4 years old, you told me you kind of thought you'd be this.
Yes.
Can you tell me about your childhood?
Sure.
It just feels right to ask you.
Okay. I think that's a really great place to marry the two. I said that it was early before we began filming that I was a therapist at the age of 4. So in my family system, there's severe domestic violence. So my dad is a very violent, angry man who should have went to prison, sadly. But in those days, in the 60s, they did more hand slapping and tell the father or the man to go walk it off and go in the bathroom or whatever, or get a hotel kind of thing. But my mom, because of her severe abuse growing up as she did, multi-generational stuff, she would depend heavily upon my older brother, who's 2 years older and me. So my older brother was the one in which would physically get involved in the altercations while I would hide. At the age of 4, my mom would look to me, and I remember looking at me like, what do I do? How do I get out of this? And of course, she called my name. She called my brother's name when she was being beaten. So when that's happening, inside of me, of course, was a helpless kid. So there's terror and trauma, sure. But there was also a part of me that was emerging at that early age where I started to realize, I gotta figure some things out here, how to do this to survive. How am I gonna help my mom? If my mom dies, I'm dead. So I gotta figure out a way to take care of her. So I think early on, that sort of consciousness that I gained in the midst of trauma is that I realized how to do something to survive. So I knew that early, that I needed to come up with answers. I needed to have understanding. So let's say God imparts wisdom to me, which I believe he did, but desperation was behind that. I had to figure out how can I help her to calm things down. So I became the sort of confidant, the person that she would go to, questions to be asked, how to handle the emotional turmoil of being abandoned. So that's where the 4-year-old started to think about this. Through the process, though, by the age of 7, my stepfather walks in, and my dad's out of the picture, at least from the violent side. The confidant relationship continued, and my stepdad is an alcoholic. So he's a functional alcoholic, but he's drinking, but and he's emotionally not there, doesn't talk to us. So mom, once again, not getting her needs met, she comes to my older brother, and myself. My older brother pushed her away. To get close, I kind of got closer to her by answering questions, by being her listening board first, and then empathic person, and then began to acquire a savvy on how to solve little problems. So I became her go-to boy. So that maintenance of that, then people, my friends, I was always leading the pack. Kids would always have questions for me. I'd always have answers to things. So that always followed me right through to the age of 16 when I had my first child. That whole idea, and then it led me down the road to pastoral counseling at the age of 19. That led me down the road to drug and alcohol counseling, which again, all dealing with issues around the stuff that I'd grown up around to sort of solve the problem. It would be later at the age of 44 that I would finally go back to school at the urging of my beautiful wife, who said, it's time to go to school. And I look at her sort of like, are you nuts? I'm 44 years old. It's time to retire almost. I don't know. Now, understand, at this point, I work for people. I worked for GE Healthcare. I worked for FedEx in the earlier days. I worked as a counselor making no money in internships year after year. I always did something, but didn't get paid. Got paid very little, was always frustrated, and always knew inside of me was the entrepreneurial spirit that I needed to be my own boss. Well, my dad used to say, my stepdad and my dad, they didn't talk to me much, but they'd find ways to ridicule. And they'd say, you should look for a king position because you always seem to want to have the answers. You don't want to listen to people. And I used to laugh. I said, no, I've applied for a king position recently. I said, but they're holding out right now for just a little while longer. I'm real close. I'm the next one on the application in the process. But yeah, so I think that was always in me. So it was at the age of 44 that I started to pursue the professional realms. But even literally up into the present day, I've been in business for 8 years. So these 8 years, I've worked for myself. It is the first time that I've called all the shots, created all of the I have 2 people that work for me, that I infuse and help other therapists as a licensed professional counselor supervisor, that I help other people develop as well. But for the first time, I call the shots. I help the people. The practice has done like if you're looking at the curve, my curve looks like this, profit-wise, but also in maintenance of the clientele, that kind of stuff. So this has been the realm, but it took literally from the age of 16, 28 years to get to the point where I go back and do my undergraduate and my graduate and my postgraduate stuff and my licensure stuff and be fully licensed by the age of 50. I'm now going to be 59. So that's kind of the beginning track. So that answers a little bit.
Yeah.
So at 44, you decided to go back to school.
Yes.
And then at age 50 is when you started working for yourself.
Started working myself at age 50.
I just find, like, that's amazing, first of all.
Thanks.
That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And to me, thinking, like, a lot of people would have given up at age 30, you know? But not to mention age 44.
Yeah.
You're right. That's when people are, you know, if they're not there yet, wishing to hopefully retire soon.
Yeah.
And, man, I applaud you for your hard work.
Thank you. Well, let me tell you, it was really, really hard because what it came back down to was realizing deep down inside that I was not going to settle for this lifestyle that I had always felt was not really my life. To work for someone is not a problem. I think working for people is necessary. I worked in hospital settings, you know, in psychiatric hospitals. I worked in the prison system for a short time. I worked in all kinds of major stuff like FedEx and, you know, the U.S. Trust Company in New York and, you know, Wall Street. I worked for brokerages, Dean Winter Rentals. I worked for all kinds of companies, including GE Healthcare. And I learned a lot of lessons. Customer service, you know, working in customer service for a long time. I always learned how to help people, work with people, work really hard early on, which really was the seed of everything that made me who I am, is that those early days of suffering, those early days of having to work beyond my ability gave me a discipline, gave me a strength that is supernatural. God has called me, He's given me strength. And as a result, the tenacious spirit. I knew that somehow, if I put my heart to it, that I'd be able to do it. But not until I was 44, when my wife looked at me and said, like, I believe in you. I was like, wow, well, that's a first.
So what do you think, like, was there any, like, moment was there any, like, event?
Yes.
That, like, was like, okay, it's time now.
Yes. We had lost everything again, and it really came down to the loss of my daughter. My youngest daughter was 19, and she was kidnapped by her mother and taken out of country 17, 18 years ago. And it was during that period of time that we lost everything, went bankrupt, lost our everything. And we pretty much both were going to, my wife also lost her children the same way. That's how we met. And it was through tragedy that I realized it was time to live. I fought, I won, I got her back for a short time, and I lost her again. So to make sense out of that loss, to me, I had to do something extraordinary. And it was that day, we were in a church meeting actually. My wife was working for the church, making a little bit of a salary. And it was right after I lost everything, so we pretty much were living in poverty again. And she looked at me and she goes, it's time to go back to school. And I looked at her sort of like, are you nuts? We're poor. This is not the time to go. You gotta work, you get a job. And she looked, she said, no. The indelible moment was, it's time. And it clicked. And that, all that energy, all of that focus, all of those years of trying and travailing, were going to come into a place where I could take this energy now and focus it in. So I finished my 4-year degree in 2 years and 7 months. I finished my 3-year advanced master's in my 3 years. Did some doctoral work and achieved a level that I was afraid I could never do.
Wow.
And so that's where it was all, and that was kind of harnessed by the power of grief and loss and purpose.
So I have a question for you.
Please.
This is kind of a unique situation where we are in. Your story, very, very dynamic. You've gotten to see a lot of situations. You have at least 20 years on everybody else in this room. Jim Rohn, somebody I respect, amazing individual. He talked about how important it is for a leader to have people close in his life that are between 10 and 20 years older and 10 and 20 years younger. And he said the reason for this is that people in an older group can tell you what is coming in your future, and the people behind you can make sure you stay relevant. Because, like right now, there's kids in high school that are using letters to communicate.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, I can only imagine what this is going to do to our future. But all that to say, with that in mind, and truthfully, given that you had your first child at the age of 16, everybody in this room is young enough to be your child, what advice, if there's one or two pieces of key advice that you would say, if I would have done this right now at your guys' age, this would have transformed my entire life and put me in a place where, I could have been here 20 years sooner, 30 years sooner.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say those one or two pieces of advice or wisdom are?
I think that's a really good question, and I appreciate that. I think first is, getting a chance, without sounding cliche, of really understanding why you're here. So if you take a psychosocial developmental position on a 12 to 18-year-old, right? It's identity formation versus identity confusion. Lots of people by the age of 20, 22, 25, and 30 are still negotiating through confusion. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they're here for. So depending on your circumstance, at this particular juncture in life, it's like if you know what you want and you have enough, let's say, cognizance of what you're supposed to be doing, pursue it then and actually make that your goal, but it has to be balanced. And I think what I did back in the day early on was it became like an obsession, like I had to focus only on it and everything else around me fell apart. So in regards to your, what's the person's name again that you look up to?
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn. Where you're having someone keep you relevant, the younger, but the older can kind of keep you going. Well, I wish there was someone there in those days who would have mentored me and said, look, you've got to know yourself and help me understand what that means, what it looks like. Give me some context. Give me something to chew on, not just make up these philosophical statements. But then also, when you know what you're supposed to do, pursue it and take the word can't out. I can't is what I said for all those years that kept me there until 44. I can't go to school. I can't do it. I need to make money. It's impossible. Those negatives and reinforcing those negatives. So I would say remove can't and put in there can. And it is difficult, but I can. With God's help, I can. With the support of people around me, I can. With people who have made it, I can. I said can't. The day my wife said it's time to go, I looked at her, thought she was crazy, but then I also looked at her with that look that a husband has for his wife after a while. And the look was, are you sure what you're saying? Because I'm telling you something. If you tell me this, I'm going to jump off the mountain with the bungee cord. I am not looking. I hope it's long enough. I hope it's short enough. I'm going off. I ain't looking back. And when she said it, I got the look. She's like, go. It was like that Rocky moment. In Rocky 2, I think, and she goes, she has the baby. She's laying in a coma, and he's waiting there. And she goes, I just have one thing to say to you. She goes, go, do it, go fight. He's like, what are you waiting for? And that's kind of what I felt like. So I think the thing is take away can't, put can. What's that? You gotta get married? Yeah, there you go. Listen, be married. You have to have the right woman. That's it. So, which I did have. Thank God for the right woman.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So,
please.
Your dad, you said he was abusive. Was your dad an alcoholic as well?
No, he was just a rageaholic.
Okay.
Garden variety rageaholic. He had some addictions,
Because I wanted to ask about just like people who make, and this is a touchy subject obviously for you, but like just people who make who have self-destructive behavior, or who make the same mistake over and over and over, and you're like, yo, don't do that. I see it. I told you about this, and they still do it anyway.
Right.
And again, like I said, it's a touchy subject. So I want to say this respectfully, but like your dad was abusive, and then your stepdad was an alcoholic.
Yes.
And you said you were the confidant for your mom and stuff like that. But how do you coach someone when you're like, you made this decision, you saw this like ruin us, and now you're gonna choose or be with someone who's also an alcoholic? It just seems like it might be a bad direction for you to go. You see them going down the wrong path, and you want to coach them through it. Yeah. But they just make decisions that you just don't agree with.
Oh yeah.
And that could just be with business or personal. But you see what I'm saying?
So in the case of that, of course, my stepdad comes along when I'm around 7. So there really wasn't a lot of coaching around that. Like, she didn't ask my opinion on whether they should be married or not, because she was desperate to connect with someone and not be alone. Yeah. That was very. So for me, had she asked me back in those days, I think at 7, I probably would have said to her, Mom, we need someone, go for it. Because I don't think I didn't know too much. I mean, it took me many, many years because, being the child of that environment, it put me through an awful lot of psychological. I mean, we make the old adage about it takes one to know one.
Yeah.
You know, I have a very, very strong reputation with my clients. My position is I care for them. My tagline on my business card is a professional and personal approach to counsel. The professional side is I am qualified. I have many, many years experience on both sides of the equation, and I'm educated. The personal side is that I love them. I care for them. I build real relationships with them, and so they feel that genuineness in myself. But it took a toll on me early on that to be that therapist at 4, to be that mentor, it became a tormentor for me. There was no one there for me to handle my stuff. So I internally, blew up inside. I internally felt the weight of the, pain and hurt and the, let's say, the feeling of being inferior. You can't really effectuate the kind of change you want to effectuate because, let's be fair, you're a kid. What are you going to do to change these things? So I think it definitely took a psychological toll on me. I've had a history of psychological disorders early on, depression, anxiety, panic disorders, and I was usually in early on relationships connected with domestic abusers, except they were abusing me.
Mm-hmm.
So as a man, that's a very difficult thing to say out loud. I say that for the people who will be listening.
I feel like you almost took that on, right? Like, because, I mean, I guess it could have gone either way, but do you think by you kind of taking that on, you felt like you were doing them a service? By letting them take it all out on you?
I think at the time I was not feeling empowered to take care of myself because I didn't want to be like my dad. Like I didn't want to hit them and hurt them. As big as I was, that even all the more made it more stigma. Like if I would have raised my hand, the police are going to come, who are they going to look at? They're going to look at this little tiny lady or this big giant guy. So I think for me, I was unable to do that. It took many years of my own psychotherapy, hospitalizations, those kind of things to help me figure out how to do this. And so I've done my own work, which also deepens the waters for those who come and see me, because I cannot just say I'm not just the president, but a client also, like, looking at the commercial goes, I'm not, was it Cy Sims, I think it's, not Cy Sims, or the hair club guy goes, I'm not just the hair club president, but I'm also a client. So in this case, I'm not just a president, but I'm also a client. And so having been there, that makes a very big difference.
Yeah, I mean, you took on both roles. As a younger kid, you took on the role of a therapist, and then as an adult, you took on the role as the abusee,
Yeah, that was and it was actually what I got out of all of that is that was where I was destined to be until I finally became conscious. When I became conscious through my own work, I could start to break those transmissions. It'd be a good time to kind of throw in the idea that when you and I talked about success in business, well, I always knew that I could, deep down inside, have this kind of a position, but the pain and the hurt of the past prevented me from being able to hold on long enough and find enough support around me to make that move. But when I took Kant out of the equation, when I had the support I knew I needed, in this case my wife, I looked at this thing and said, logically speaking, I could work for somebody and have some security. I can work for somebody and make some money. But here I can help people at a deep, authentic level on my terms, within the confines of the law, of course. But then I also could make an inordinate amount of money that would be ridiculous considering when I think about what we can make in private practice sectors. We're helping people legitimately, but we can actually get what we're worth as opposed to going through the system. So,
see, and I'll get in there as well. You said I can work for somebody and have some security,
sure.
Right? And people have heard me say this all the time, but I don't know how secure your future is in someone else's hands.
I agree.
Like just being honest, right? I don't know how secure you are depending on the thought process that you're not absolutely familiar with, right?
Sure.
It's just, it is what it is. But I get it, and even today, there are a lot of people that had a ton of security that 2 weeks of panic has
gone
completely rattled.
Yep.
Right. So even that it is what it is. But I wanna kind of switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
To talk about something else that you're interested in. Clearly, Rob doesn't lift weights.
No, I lifted once, I think.
One time,
Once.
just woke up and looked like this.
I mean, hanging out with you, that's what happens.
So I tell I tell people this all the time. When I first met Rob, I was over there benching. I was doing incline bench, right? And I see him back there, like on the flat bench, just benching alone at that point. And comes up to me and says, "Hey, young man, can I get a spot?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." He had, I think, 275 on there. And I got up. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go spot him now." And he's like, "Oh, no, not yet." So I went, and I'm watching him in the mirror, and he keeps going. And he gets to 4 plates, and I go, and I help him. And I'm like, all right, I didn't do anything here. And then we get to 500, and he's like, all right, so just give me the lift off, and I'll go down. And I give him the lift off, and he goes down, brings it back up. And then he was like, how much help did you give me?
That's funny.
And I said to him, I said, hey, listen, man, if you failed that, you would have been dead. Because I couldn't have helped you. I couldn't have helped you. And he's looking at me like, well, why did you say yes? I was like, because I'm not a punk, I'll help you out. But
I saw 275 and that'd be okay.
I got that. We're at 500. Well, that escalated quickly.
That's funny.
But it's and I'll be honest with you. I look forward to Wednesdays and Saturdays. Not just because of the lift. I was talking when you texted me this afternoon.
Yes.
I was talking to my my recruiter, and I was like, "Oh man, LA Fitness is closed." And usually she makes fun of me for these things.
Sure.
But she says, "I'm so sorry." Because and people are like, "Oh, dude, come on, man, stop being such a meathead," and that. And I'm just like, that's not the only thing. It's such a an important part of what I do and how I think and how I feel. And I got to tell you, man, like for someone who's been through the stuff you've been through, like every time you say some stuff, I'm like you have no right being as happy as you are. You have no right being as jolly as you are. You have no right wearing the bright colors that you wear.
What bright colors?
The yellows and all that stuff.
Barry loves it.
As some of you guys have seen in the videos, he's the guy with the bright yellow shirts.
Socks.
But and clearly in your practice, you are who you are. Right now, you are who you are. Like you're always that. So for me, I say all that to just ask, like, is that something that you have to try to do, or is that something that you just do? And if it is, like, why is that?
Well, first,
it's not normal.
Well, you know what? First of all, I appreciate your acknowledgement, and I like what you're saying. Let me give you the psychological side first that really works for me. So there's the false self, there's the public self, there's a true self, there are many other selves. I think what I have worked really hard to do through this process is I've tried to destroy the false self, meaning that I have to present a persona to people outside a certain way and then inside another way. I have an adage that I kind of use myself. It says, if you see me here, you see me there. I tell my clients, if you saw me in the outside world, I'll be a little brighter. This is a work shirt, believe it or not. This. I'm a little brighter.
Tone it down a little bit.
This is a little tone. Look, I got dark socks.
Whoa!
Wow.
What's going on here?
My friends here,
No fluorescent.
No fluorescent today. That's why I dress for work, right? But I'm a little brighter and a little sillier. But this is me.
Yeah.
So I think my true self has been developed through that filter and through that experience, and the jolliness or what I hope is the persona of genuineness, I believe comes from a relationship to God, which is the most important thing to me. And I'm strengthened by Him and strengthened by that position, and that it's a choice. My choice is when I go to the gym on Wednesday mornings, I'm going to be with my buddies. We're going to go in there. We're going to kill it. I'm going to hopefully inspire, and I'm going to push people, and I'm going to joke, and we're going to get it done, because that's what I do at the gym. But at home, I'm gonna get that done and take care of the business. And at the business, I'm gonna get the business done. With the people, they come in and of course they're texting me every day, 7 days a week. You know, I have to have that. You know that for yourself, having your own business. What I differentiate my practice in is I don't inappropriately spend hours upon hours and have no free time. I have boundaries with my clients, but they can reach out to me anytime and just say something like, I'm struggling. To which I might write back, I'm with you. What's going on? To let them know there's a point of contact. That relationship has built my practice where I'm 99% word of mouth. I don't advertise except on Psychology Today, which is really more like a checkpoint for authentication. So that jolly guy comes from what God has given me. It's been through a process of, let's say, becoming who I really am. Like I mentioned earlier, like who I really am is this guy. Like if you see me at home, I'm smiling. If you see me with the kids, I'm smiling. Sometimes a little goofier in certain settings, but generally, that's who I am. And so I think that it's a testimony to, I believe, to what God's done, but I also believe that hearing friends say that means a lot to me too, because they see that and it means it's working. Something's working. I see you're being politically correct.
You see what's going on.
There you go.
Run it for
Yeah, because I remember, you know, when you were getting your new house.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you.
You can edit that out.
Yeah, when you were getting your new house, I remember you came in and, you know, you had all this stuff going on that would have completely rattled those people. And I remember thinking, I was like, all right, you know, Rob wasn't, you know, full throttle Rob.
Nope. I remember that one.
But you were still happy.
Yeah.
You know, most people would be like, oh, you can't believe when this happens. You know, and I remember it was just like, all right, well, man, it's been a week. This is what's happened, and this is what we're doing about it, right? And I think that's a huge part of being successful in relationships. I think that's a huge part of being successful in business. I think that's just a huge part of being productive and therefore being happy.
Yeah.
Most people like to say, oh, this happened. This is the problem.
Right.
That doesn't do anything. You know, yeah, okay. Great. Now I thought about the problem. I'm saying it now. I'm receiving it and hearing it. Okay, what about the solution? What are we doing moving forward? And again, it's in my mind, it's very simple because I feel people waste so much time.
Yeah.
Just announcing the problem and then being victims to them hearing what the problem is.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it's really cool. Like I've seen you. That was a big deal. That's a house. You know what I mean?
In regards to
It's a
being
massive
nice,
deal.
in regards to being nice, like just to kind of piggyback off that, like I think there's a misconception when people say like people who make a lot of money or run their own businesses, like they think that they're bad people. You know the connotation like rich get rich or poor. Like there's a memory that I have of you when I first started going to the gym with you guys. Obviously because I lift, you know.
I know you do.
You know how that goes.
You don't want to overshadow us.
You know what I mean?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's why I covered up. That's why I covered up today.
He goes for the midnight hour.
I mean,
So but when I was at LA with you guys, you like it was like our first interaction together. Like, not to toot your horn, but like at LA Fitness, you guys are like celebrities, right? And the reason I say that is like everyone knows on Wednesday, don't touch the bench.
Don't touch the bench, baby.
Don't touch the bench. Big Rob and O is on this bench today.
You're doing
right?
300 plus.
So I'm there. So me and Robbie, I'm like, I lift with them. You know what I mean?
Oh, I feel great.
So like, but I knew at that time, like, I'm not lifting what you guys are lifting, but and I had just met you.
Yeah.
But we went downstairs in the locker room. We were changing, and you come downstairs and you said something. And you were like, "Yo, Dante, how much you look good on the bench there?" Something simple like that. A, I didn't know like you knew who I was.
Yep.
But B, you just made me feel good. And I think that there's a misconception about like. I just think people who run businesses and do well for themselves, they make a deliberate effort to make other people feel good. And I don't know if that is something that you learn. And as you start running businesses and dealing with people, or if that's something that's necessary to get you in a position to be able to get that. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and I'm glad that you know it, and thank you. But I think the bigger piece is it probably works on both sides. Before you get there, having these common skills will be very helpful. So from the point of view of my history, I spent so much time in customer service at FedEx, customer service at GE Healthcare, Nikon Van Amersham, these companies for years, like doing what I considered mindless. And sometimes I would take the headset off my head. I would throw it down as hard as I could without breaking it. And I would shake like, I can't do this anymore. I'm in this trap. And I was trapped in myself because this was the paycheck. This was secure. This is how I thought. But those principles were being born out of the trials. You become, as one would say, bitter or better.
Yeah.
If you become bitter, you give into the troubles and trials of your life, and you become like disgruntled, as you mentioned earlier. Like, this is what's going on. Like, I don't want things to go wrong. I'm upset with what's happening right now, but I also have an inner joy that comes from the Lord, which I believe is important. I have a good relationship with my wife. We have a happy relationship. We're together. We have children. We have grandchildren. We have friends. We have family. And that to me is what I live for. So in the business world, like coming down to talk to you could be looked at as PR in some way, but it's not. It's an extension of what I do. So when I have clients coming in, I don't know who they are. So a guy comes in recently and he lost his son. And the first thing I did was I sat in like this and I said, I'm really sorry about your loss. And now let's listen to him. And we work through this issue and he starts to cry. And so when he starts to cry, I feel emotional because I care about him. And he knows I care because he sees a tear come down my eye, but it's not about me, it's about him. How can I watch someone talk about the death of their son and not have a feeling? That's who I am. So I think what it comes back down to, again, is part of your nature. You mentioned before about the idea of where that sort of jovialness comes from. It comes from an inner joy that's really not contingent upon circumstance. Because happiness is about what we get right now. I'm happy we're here all together, it's fun.
Yeah.
But joy is something internal, and I've been living in that, and that again comes from a relationship to God. Without that relationship, I think I'd be empty. I'd have nothing to be smiling about. My daughter's still gone. She's going to be 19, and I really haven't seen her in 17 years. I love her. I miss her. And what happens? An injustice. I could hate the world. My wife still lost her 2 children. But she doesn't allow that either to destroy her peace. And we try to do something good out of it. Take the evil, take the dirt, take the filth, turn it into something better. And that takes intentionality. Don't ever quit. Don't ever give up. Like when I get under the bench, I never think I'm going to not do it. I have to do it. I'm going to do it. Mind, ask for strength. And then you're my best spotter. Come on.
There we go. We need
It
the
always
shirts.
goes up.
We need the shirts.
It always goes up. Because
Yeah.
you can't go another way. That's how I think it.
Is there a correlation? I guess all of you guys can answer this because is there a correlation between people who just do really well in life and just waking up early and getting after it early? Because like if I go to the gym with you guys and we're there at 5 a.m., it's a different set of people in the gym. The conversations people are having, the attitudes they have, the energy in the gym at 5 a.m. when we go, it's not the same as if you miss the gym in the morning and fuck it, I still got to go after it today. So you go at like in the afternoon at 5 to 4 or something. It's a different set of humans. The conversation, the energy, like everything's different. Do you feel like there's a correlation between the people who are there at 5 and the people who are there at 4? And like, why is that? Like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think
you missed the gym earlier and you were pissed when you got there like 4.
Yes, I think there is a correlation because, and not just business, like just life, relationships, because like we've heard this a bunch, right? How you do one thing is how you do everything. Right? It's like we went and played soccer yesterday, and it was just a bunch of us, and in the first 10 minutes of the game, I hit a slide tackle, right? And everybody was like, ooh, come on, Okletey. And I had to catch myself. I was like, oh man, okay, wait, hold on. This is not that serious. But I don't have another gear, right? So if I'm interested in something, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So if I'm interested in something, I wake up at 4:30, I'm gone. You know, it's we're looking for. A lot of people go to the gym or go do things to, you know, to justify their limits.
Yeah.
I think people that are successful go look for their limits and push them.
Yep.
Right? So you have people like, you know, like Big Rob that would go and leg press 1,800 pounds. What was that you did?
1853.
1,853. How many times? 4?
Only 4.
Yeah, outrageous, right? Outrageous.
That's
And
small.
you get Grant that comes in, and how heavy are you?
Buck 85.
Yeah, 185, and he is pushing weight that 200 pounders don't have any business pushing.
Nope.
Right? So in my mind, it's not, oh, okay, well, this is how you build, blah, blah, blah. You're interested in this. And I'm like, what time were you at your office yesterday morning? Sunday.
9:30.
Are you open?
Yeah.
Okay. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just, there's something to do so it gets done.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I do think there is a huge, if you drew a regression line, it'd be straight.
Mm-hmm.
It would be straight. And it's, you know, and I think in your personal life, when you're like that, you're called intense and you're called too much and you're called, you know, you take everything too seriously. And you're called all these names. But on the flip side, you know, it's, you're not a quitter. You know what I mean? Like, you see what you want in your mind, and you know the bridge between what it is going on here and the tangibility is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know it, and you know it has to come out, and you know it has to be there. And you have to do it. Like, last Wednesday, we were benching, and you put up 315 for 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put up 315 for 8, and in my mind, I was just like, oh, okay. We did 8 315 real easy. Not on the come down, right? On the go up. And I was like, oh, okay. We gotta go heavy now. It's like, hey, listen, I think we can do some damage today.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, we start to strategize. I was like, we're gonna do 1 rep of everything. So we do that. Then we get to 515, and boom, 1, 2, rack.
Nothing.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think people that do stuff like that is, okay, we're always looking for more, right? We're always looking for the little more. You want to wake up a little earlier. You want to get back over here. You want to take advantage of stuff that's going on, like this whole Corona stuff. We want to squeeze everything out of that lemon as we can, or that orange, or whatever fruit is politically positive.
Uh-huh.
We want to squeeze everything we can and get it. So I get really passionate about this because people talk, you know, oh, gym this, gym that, and I'm like, no, it's not that. It's you.
Yeah.
It's who you are, what you want.
Yeah.
And it's life.
I think across the board, I don't think you're saying. I think across the board, what you do at home, if you do it well, you'll do it in the office the same way you'll do it in your business. Whether you work for someone or work for yourself. And part of what we're talking about here is we're talking about the entrepreneurial spirit, where people have the vision of what they want and hope for. They desire more out of life. They want to put their hard work into play, and they want something more out of it, as opposed to putting your hard work into play and making other people rich. You can become more wealthy, whatever wealth looks like. See, to me, wealth is not $1 million. It's not $200,000. It's not $10 million. Wealth is feeling good about what you do, being able to take care of what you need to take care of. What is your vision of the world? Like, do you want that $1 million house? You want that $500,000 house? You want that $250,000 house? You want that kind of Bentley? You want that Mercedes? You want that Toyota? It doesn't matter. What makes you happy? And these things are material things. To me, success is being successful as a person, feeling good about myself and what I do, believing in what I do, waking up in the morning not going, oh my God, I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there, done that. I got many T-shirts. I see a lot of plaques on the wall there. Oh, for you. I mean, I've had those plaques on the wall as it relates to all the things I knew I should have done, but I didn't do it. But when I finally got to that place of like, I'm ready, and then I took that Band-Aid off, I ripped it off the skin, it hurt. But I look back 8 years later and I'm like, I made the right decision.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Please.
Go ahead, go.
So when did you find that positivity in your life? Was it when you were 44 and you decided, I'm going back to school?
Okay.
Or did you always have it like with having like faith, you know?
I've always had the positivity early on,
Okay.
and that was what I believe gave me the strength to keep doing. And like every time I got battered down,
Mm-hmm.
instead of becoming bitter, it made me fight harder. Like you punch me in the face, I get back up. You punch me in the face. I did this. A bully beat me up when I was 12. He was an 18-year-old Marine, Golden Gloves. He was the bully of the whole neighborhood. He's a crazy kid. And so he used to beat up the kids. And so one day he did something to me, and I finally had enough. And it was he would not beat us up. He'd more just torture us, you know. But this time he actually had a fight with me because I was the first kid to stand up to him. I said, Jimmy, I don't care how big you are, how strong you are. I said, I'm going to fight you. That's it. We're going down. So he comes up, gets in the stance, knocks me in the face, knocks me down. Knocks me in the face, knocks me. It must have been about, no joke, 10 times. He gave me a hit strong enough to knock me down.
We gotta find Jimmy.
We gotta find Jimmy. We're gonna beat him up
We gotta
today.
find Jimmy.
Jimmy's watching.
Jimmy's
Yeah,
watching.
we gotta
Jimmy, I'm
find
gonna find
Jimmy.
you now. You better tell me sorry. But what I finally did at the end is he got tired, and I said, I'm not going down. He looked at me and said, You're sick. You're a crazy kid, man. And he pushed me. As soon as he went away, I started to cry. And I didn't cry because I got punched. I cried because my pride got hurt. Like, I can't win. I can't beat him. Because I don't want to be humiliated anymore. I don't like bullies. So this bully did that to me. But I think from the earliest day on is I've always had a desire from the age of 19 on when I became a believer. And at that point, I had a joy. And I've always kind of pursued that. And that's what helps me get through this. But I think now having the psychological, emotional recovery that I do, having that training and background, and then having my vision in front of me. I think everybody needs a vision. You know, the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. We need a vision, something to look to, something to, strive for. Otherwise, we become weary. I want to keep looking at that goal. That's my goal. It's right there. I never take my eyes off it. I just do it.
I'll tell you, I love that you talk about your faith. I'm a Jesus lover too.
You
It's
are.
awesome, man.
Oh, wonderful.
I think there are people. If you were to say, what does your perfect day look like, right? And I've got an idea of like my perfect day set out where it encompasses spending quality time and investing into my kids, and studying the Word of God, understanding how to try to incorporate it in my life, working out, training myself physically, serving people through my gifts, through what I've been given for what I'm called to do, spending quality and intentional time with my wife, ultimately talking about the gym and staying healthy has been kind of a cornerstone of all of this, but if you lose your health, you've lost it. And there are financial advisors that would say your most valuable asset is your ability to earn an income.
100%.
Yes,
Right? So that's what I say. And so that can mean a wide variety of things. I'm intellectually intelligent to utilize small limited amounts of funds to make drastic, exponential funds from this money. I have a phenomenal ability to make money.
Yes.
I assure you, your ability to earn income is one step further. Your greatest asset is your health. And if you lose your health, you have lost your greatest asset. Unfortunately, most people prioritize their health when it is failing.
Yes.
That's when it's time to focus on it ultimately. So
That's with everything, though, right?
and here's the thing I would note is there is this idea of success that's like, when I hit this goal, when I hit this barrier, when I have this house, when I have this car, when I hit this number, this is success.
This is it.
This is success. And what I have found is it is empty. It is empty because success isn't a goal. It's not a vision. It's not a picture. It's not something you buy. It is ultimately, what is today? Like, what is today? Is today really a success? What does that mean? And what is the difference between mediocrity and successfulness? And that's the bridge. That's the gap. Are you going to be mediocre today? Is this going to be, I've got 24 hours, not another 24 is guaranteed, not another moment is necessarily guaranteed. None of us are guaranteed to sit in this room together ever again. We could literally, so not to be morbid or whatever, but here's the truth is we don't have another moment guaranteed to us. Is today a success? And was it your visionary day? Did you accomplish what you set out to do? And if it wasn't, then you failed. And then you're probably closer to the side of mediocrity than successfulness, but it's your mind's eye. There isn't a goal or a vision you can hit to say, this is it, the clouds have opened, I've made it.
It's never gonna happen. It really isn't. And you know, for me, just like watching my dad do what he's done and continue to do what he's done, remembering who my dad was when I was 4 or 5 years old, successful, right? Knowing him today, successful.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so comfortable being who he is, and coming home, and he would tell everyone, he's like, hey, listen, when I come home, leave me in the car for 15 minutes, you know? And we'd leave him, he'd come in, and just happy person. So you're super right, 100% right. It's not how much money do you have in the bank, you know? It's what kind of car. It's not what kind of car you drive. It's, you know, and I know this is cliche, but it's just like, you know, are you happy? And are you in control of that? Because if you're not in control of that, then you're in a state of anxiety.
Yeah.
You know?
And so many people in a state of anxiety.
Yes.
And bringing it back to him, it's like Robin Williams, suicide.
Yes.
Yes.
Linkin Park singer, suicide. Lead singer of STP, one of my absolute favorite bands, overdose on heroin, suicide. You have all these people that are financially wealthy, seemingly idols, doing incredible things.
They're miserable.
But they are depressed.
Absolutely.
They're miserable, you know, and it's, you know, and a lot of it, like for me, you know, is, you know, growing up, a lot of people tell you, oh, you know, you have a problem with authority, right? Right now, when I think about it, it's like, no, I had an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
That's all it was, you know, and it was, I'm so grateful for my parents because they were just like, oh, you know, it's not that, he's just, you know, he's bored with this, he's bored with that. And they were great with nurturing that. And you see that all the time, and I'm grateful that I got to express, or that I get to express that every day. You know what I mean? I know we're running on time.
No, I was. Someone bought me an Apple Watch, and I can't stop doing this.
You can't look at it all the time. But you know, you're right. You're right, and you touched on something that again I'm very passionate about. But it's, you know, I'm very, very glad, and I'm very happy that you're the example that you are. You know, because a lot of times you find people, and we're in the field all the time, right? How many people did you see today, like you, Timmy, that you said, I hope I am not you when I get older?
Mm-hmm.
A bunch.
A lot of
people.
We said we saw 40 people. I'd say there's 40 people that we.
Yeah.
It's a huge reminder.
Yes.
Right? It's a massive reminder.
Excuse me.
That's one of the things I love the most about the field. I'm reminded to be grateful, right? And like, you know, we'll go to a restaurant and we have reservations at 7, and we're there until 12:30, right? Y'all know Megan. She doesn't hang out that long, you know. We'll come to your house and we're there until, you know, I can't drive, and people are sitting on people's laps, right? That has happened. It has. I said people, you don't know if it's anybody, you don't know.
Oh, it was on Robbie's lap.
Right? No. But there's a reason for that, right? And there's a big reason for that. And it's not, oh, how much money does who make or whatever it makes. It's just the value in the conversation that we're having and the value of the people that you guys are. You know what I mean? And like, I hope Marilyn watches this, but
She's gonna see it.
Man, I mean, Megan loves her, and she just hangs out, and she's just like, yeah. We get in the car, and Marilyn's like, oh my, and Megan is like, oh my God, I didn't know they went through that. She's like, how are they so jolly? You know?
That's funny.
Well, there's a testimony again. Well, let me say this though. So around those things, thank you for those words that are encouraging. And you know, we all have gifts. We all have something that God has given us to do. Entrepreneurial spirit is part of a gifting. It may not be a quote spiritual gift, but it's definitely a gift that's imparted, and it has connotations to reach so many people in so many different ways. So what success looks like for me is similar to you, is having that relationship to God, being close to my wife, to my children, my grandkids, my friends, to have a focus and a passion for something that I do, to know that I make a difference, an imprint when I go out to the public, that I believe Jesus shines from me, that there's a sense of like light. And someone once time said, it was really interesting, at the gym, and believe it or not, it came from, it might have been Mac and someone else that said it. It's interesting, but they said, when these guys were over there in the corner, he said, there's light over there. And that light, I believe, is partly, I believe it's Jesus, for sure. But the light that's in us, because, you know, it's we do have a good time. We work out really hard, but we can still make jokes. We walk out refreshed. We walk out pumped up. We walk out healthy. And to me, that's success. Fear of having a business or not, it's really a matter of choice. But if you want to work for somebody, that's great. If that's your call, enjoy it.
Yeah.
But if you have a heart, excuse me, to do the work that we're all doing in our own rights, go after what you're supposed to do. Go after what you've been meant to do. You'll be more fulfilled. You'll make more money for sure, and you'll be able to enjoy times like this that others don't have the privilege of doing. And as you get older, you'll get better. You know, I'm closing in on 60 in less than a year and a quarter.
What?
I'll be 60 in a year and a quarter. So
Awesome.
60.
yeah, that's crazy because I still think I'm 33.
We got to do 540 for
You're
60.
27.
540 in the bench for 60. I'm in there.
600.
I think 600 would be good.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah.
All right.
Come on,
Six- test your limits.
I mean, it's,
600.
it's an even number. I mean,
What?
3 and 3 on each
Cut
side.
him down. He said
Hey, my bad.
That's
My
all right,
bad.
man. I'll let you get
All
away
right,
with
let's do it. All right, so cool. Anyone have any other questions?
I
Before we
just
get
want to
out
say
of here.
thanks for your honesty and thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
I thought I knew a little bit more about you, and then I was like, oh wow, there's a lot I didn't know, and I really appreciate you opening up
Well, thank you.
to everybody.
You're
so,
very welcome, buddy.
Yeah,
And that's the amended version. How's that? More to come.
motivating, very
Thank you. Thank you.
cool.
Thank
Well-
you all for having me.
So, like I said, before I started this whole series, I told Big Rob, I said, I'm gonna get you on there someday. And it was just like, yeah. I was like, well, yeah, we did that.
You did it, man. There you go, man.
So I'm excited about that, and thank you for coming on. I know this kind of shakes up your routine a little bit, but I appreciate it. It was awesome. Grant, thank you. I know it's short notice, but I
Thank you for
appreciate
being
it.
here, too,
I'll see you so we can have some of your, Blanton's Gold. I'm putting it on camera right now, so you have to.
You're kind of
honor
obligated
that.
now.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. And Tim, hey, I know we just threw you into this, but I hope you had some fun.
I just-
It was
yeah.
great.
What'd you say?
He's like, I just work here, man.
Yeah,
It's my first day.
I hope you had some fun. You came into this whole thing with the whole Corona scare.
I know.
But you know what? I hope you learned something,
Yeah, definitely.
and I hope you get something out of it. But we gotta go. We gotta run out. Again, I just want to say thank you, appreciate it,
You're welcome, buddy.
and we'll see y'all next week. Thank you. Peace.
Take care.
Hey, stay safe, guys.
Corona's good. We don't drink. We drink bourbon.
Still one